Welcome to the outreach presentation for the new Resilient Food Systems Infrastructure Program. This presentation will be available by recording only with slides maximized so that you can pause and write down any questions to ask later during one of our Zoom workshops in November. NMDA has entered into a cooperative agreement with USDA AMS for the next 4 years. NMDA will serve as the administrator and will also help conduct technical assistance and supply chain coordination with the help of our partner, the New Mexico Economic Development Department. The purpose of the RFSI program is to benefit consumers, producers, and rural communities by providing more options, increased access, and creating new, more, and better markets for small and mid-sized producers. And the intent is to address gaps left by other existing federal programs. Now, RFSI will serve the middle of the supply chain needs for locally or regionally produced food products, excluding meat and poultry. And middle of the supply chain is post-harvest to back of the retail store, for example. And middle of the supply chain activities include processing, aggregation, and distribution of targeted agricultural products. RFSI can fund projects, but not operations. And a definition of a project can be found in the program scope and requirements. Just as RFSI is a component of the USDA's framework for transforming the food system, RFSI at the state level here in New Mexico will now be included as part of the Governor's Food Initiative framework. NMDA's role will be the administration of the grant and partnering with our subgrantees, supply chain coordination and technical assistance. And along with NMDA on providing supply chain coordination and technical assistance will be our partner, New Mexico Economic Development Department. And of course, the Governor's Office will be providing overall support for the Food Initiative framework. Program overview. Eligible commodities include specialty crops, dairy, grains for food, aquaculture, and other food products. Now, ineligible products include meat and poultry or products made with meat and poultry. And this is because meat and poultry are funded through other USDA programs. And aside from meat and poultry, other ineligible products include wild-caught seafood, exclusively animal feed and forage products, fiber, landscaping products, tobacco, or dietary supplements. Eligible applicants include agricultural producers or processors or groups of these producers or processors, for-profit entities operating middle of the supply chain activities. For-profit entities must meet the eligibility requirements of the SBA Small Business Size Standards, and we've included a link to the SBA's size standards tool for you to access. Also eligible are nonprofits, local government entities, tribal governments, institutions, and that can include schools, universities, or hospitals. And then just as a reminder, middle of the supply chain activities include post-harvest to back of the retail store, etc. And middle of the supply chain activities can include things such as processing, aggregation, and distribution of targeted agricultural products. And lastly, all applicant businesses and organizations must be domestically owned and located. New Mexico will receive approximately $4.6 million. And after costs for administration, technical assistance, and supply chain coordination, approximately $3.6 million will be available for a competitive solicitation to award RFSI funds to projects that maintain and improve food and agricultural supply chain resiliency. $1 million of the $4.6 million is earmarked for the equipment-only grants, and those can be a minimum of $10,000 and a maximum of $100,000 each. And the balance of $2.6 million will be for the infrastructure grants. And the minimum for those grants is $100,000. Now, those projects can begin as early as fall of 2024 and must end by September 2027. So that's 3 years total. Matching contributions. Total project amount includes a combination of federal funds and the match. A standard match of 50% of the total project cost is required unless you are eligible for the 25% reduced match. And eligible applicants for the 25% reduced match can include historically underserved farmers and ranchers, SBA qualified small disadvantaged businesses, women-owned small businesses, and also veteran-owned businesses can be eligible to reduce the reduced federal match. And all matching contributions must be committed or secured at the time of application to the state, which is NMDA, and will require a letter for each cash or in-kind resource signed by the matching organization. And we will be providing a template for that. USDA defined eligible projects. This first category of eligible projects include facility expansion and construction. And that includes expanding processing capacities, purchasing and installing specialized equipment, construction of a new facility, increasing packing and labeling capacity that meets compliance requirements, and increasing storage space, including cold storage. And the rankings that you see here and on the next few slides are as a result of a survey that we conducted earlier this summer to determine New Mexico's funding priorities. So any rankings have been factored into the rubric that will be used to evaluate proposals. And the rubric can be found or will be made available on our RFSI webpage. The next category of defined eligible projects is modernization, and that can include developing, customizing, or installing climate smart equipment that meets one or more of USDA's climate action goals. Modernizing manufacturing, tracking, storage, or information technology systems. Modernizing equipment or facilities through upgrades, repairs, or retooling. And modernizing equipment or facilities to ensure food safety, including associated passive consultation, plan development, and employee training. Worker-related eligible projects can include training on the use of all equipment purchased under the grant and associated new processes, and also enhancing worker safety through adoption of new technologies or investment in equipment or facility improvements. Now on to USDA-defined eligible activities and tasks, and that includes hiring term-limited personnel to assist with project implementation activities, purchasing special purpose equipment, analyzing potential facility upgrades and changes that meet regulatory requirements, or obtaining design and/or architecture services, etc. Planning for HACCP or other food safety or worker safety measures or equipment recommendations. And lastly, upgrades or new facilities for processing specific agricultural products. And we have some examples of those. And those examples include on-farm post-harvest processing, preservation and storage or cold storage, post-harvest cleaning and grading, aggregator, warehouse and storage, including cooperatives, purchase of freezing equipment for cold storage, processing, canning, preserving, and pasteurization, preparation and packing, drying, hulling, shelling, and milling, and lastly, cooking, baking, juicing, distilling, and fermenting. New Mexico's funding priorities include investing in local producers' ability to support New Mexico's food system, building capacity of New Mexico's supply chain, increasing opportunities for more value-added products to diversify offerings and extend availability, implementing sustainable agricultural practices and climate-smart technologies to keep agriculture and business in New Mexico and bring food closer to where it is ultimately consumed. And lastly, providing hunger relief efforts for food insecure New Mexicans. USDA defined potential market channels, and this was also part of our survey, include retailers, intermediaries such as food hubs, aggregators, wholesalers, and distributors, marketing channels or mechanisms intended to respond to food access challenges, and institutions. And as a reminder, middle of the supply chain does not include retailers themselves, but anything post-harvest leading up to the retail store. Other eligible expenses not covered under eligible projects and activities include the following eligible expense categories, which are personnel and fringe benefits, travel, equipment, supplies, construction, contractual, and indirect costs. And you can also see the program-specific terms and conditions for more allowable and unallowable costs and activities. It is unallowable to use grant funds for the acquisition of buildings, facilities, or land, and special purpose vehicles relevant to the scope of work on an infrastructure grant project, such as delivery vehicles or refrigerated trucks, are allowable. However, the purchase of a general use vehicle is not allowable. So again, please see the RFSI program-specific terms and conditions for more information on general use and special purpose equipment. Ineligible expenses include paying costs that have been or will be reimbursed by a third party, paying costs incurred prior to the date of the agreement, paying costs that support or oppose union organizing, paying costs associated with conducting research and development, paying costs or allow for current market value of property and equipment as eligible total project costs that only support existing processing capacity for a facility. The keyword there is existing. And then supporting an application or project that has a proposed period of longer than the allowable 3 years. Other considerations: we cannot count a matching contribution twice. Other federal funds can't be used as a match. We can't fund activities that have already received a federal award, and we can't claim expenses already reimbursed by another grant. As a reminder, NMDA only pays on a reimbursement basis for our grants. However, we can build on previous successes. So just general questions to ask yourself before applying for any grant. Is your proposal relevant, and can it be effective? Is it feasible? What kind of impact may it have? And what are the chances of it having longevity? In terms of applying for RFSI, equally important are eligibility and capacity. How to apply. Our proposal deadline is December 31st, 2023. Now keep in mind that NMDA's offices are closed beginning December 22nd for the holidays. So if you'd like feedback on your proposal, if you could send your proposals in by early December, we'll do our best to review them and provide feedback. And where to apply, you will be utilizing our new grant platform called Submittable, and a link to Submittable can be found on our RFSI webpage. Applying for equipment-only grants. There is no match requirement for the equipment-only grants. You will utilize the proposal templates available within Submittable, and the other required documents include the letters of support, the critical resources infrastructure letter, which is available on our RFSI webpage, documentation to substantiate the cost of each piece of equipment, and a UEI number if you do not already have one. Applying for full infrastructure grants. Now a match is required here either at the 50% or 25% level. And it has the same required documents other than the letters of match verification, which only applies to the full infrastructure grants. Other compliance obligations. All grant recipients must comply with all applicable federal, state, local, and tribal laws and regulations. And here are some examples of those. And two that we are waiting for guidance on include the Building America, Buy America Act and NEPA. Match requirements, and it's based on gross. A match is only required again for the full infrastructure grants at the 50% or the reduced 25% match level. And you can see the proposal template for more information on self-certifying to see if you meet the requirements for the reduced 25% match. And again, letters of verification using the template provided are required. And a match may be cash, in-kind contributions, or a combination thereof. And all matching contributions must be tracked and reported. And again, the equipment-only grants do not have a match requirement. And a couple other things to note, only costs allowable under subpart E of the cost principles can be brought as a match. The basis for determining the value of cash and in-kind contributions must be in accordance with 2 CFR 200.306. And a common question is, can donated rental space or land be considered in-kind match? For example, if a city donates land to an applicant to build a processing, aggregation, cold storage facility, the answer is yes and no. Acquired real property, including land, is an unallowable cost and therefore cannot be used to meet the match requirement. However, rental costs are an allowable cost and may be used to meet match requirements. For reference, here are 2 match examples. The first shows the 50% match requirement, and the second is the reduced match requirement of 25% for the same total project amount of $400,000. Performance measures and reporting. Please see the outcomes and indicators listed under expected performance measures section within the proposal template. And you will be required to select at least one outcome and one of its associated indicators. You'll also be required to collect data on that and report on it within both your progress reports that are submitted with each invoice, as well as your annual and final reports. And we just wanted to provide an example of one of the allowable outcomes. And this particular one, outcome 2, has a possible 11 indicators to select from. Notes on outcomes and indicators. You will be expected to regularly report on each outcome and indicator you select, and only select indicators for which you can provide solid justification and background documentation for what you report. Now, just a review of the process. We're here in this first stage, the request for proposals. And then our proposals are due at the end of December. So after that, proposals will be reviewed by our evaluation committee, and the committee will come up with a set of recommendations to present to the New Mexico Secretary of Agriculture. And after that, NMDA will notify all applicants and those that will be moving forward in the process. Those successful applicants will be contacted, and we will work with them to revise their proposals and get it ready to submit within our full state plan to USDA in May. And then after we submit the state plan in our application packet, USDA will review it. We may go through some revisions. And then based on the approved state plan and application, NMDA will work with NMSU to develop subcontracts between us and our project coordinators. So here's a timeline for all of those activities. And on to the evaluation process. Just as an overview, the evaluation committee will consist of several representatives, one or more from the New Mexico Economic Development Department, one or more from the Governor's Office Food Initiative, a value chain coordinator or more than one value chain coordinator, a producer group rep or reps, an NMSU NMDA grant rep or reps. And the rubric will be available on our RFSI webpage for you to review while you put together your proposal. So please take the time to have a third party who is not familiar with your project to review your proposal. Please edit it for grammar and spelling and recheck your budget calculations. And again, if you would like our feedback on your proposal, please submit it early. Briefly, the technical assistance that will be provided by NMDA and NMEDD We'll just go over some of those. Those categories of technical assistance and supply chain coordination were defined by USDA. And our two agencies have worked together to determine some initial ways that we can support and expand the middle of the supply chain in New Mexico. And we've included some examples here. This first category fits under planning support for applicants. Our second category is business assistance. And then lastly, we just like to go over the content that's on the RFSI webpage. To access that page, you'll visit elevatenmag.com. You'll click on funding opportunities and then click on Resilient Food Systems Infrastructure Program. And please don't forget to sign up for one of our virtual workshops to discuss your potential projects. We'll be hosting 3 of them along with NMEDD, and they'll be held on November 14th, 16th, and 17th. And we've provided the links to register here. Thank you for your time today. We can be reached via email at rfsi@nmda.nmsu.edu. Have a great day.